presentation, it's me. We're going to talk about touching Ajijic's past. So these are the things that maybe you're unaware of in Ajijic, but the things that are still tangible, you can still see, hear, feel today, that have a connection with the past. And to help me out, I have two very special guests. Eduardo Ramos Correro. Everyone knows him as Lalo. And Lalo is the cronista of Ajijic. So he's responsible for keeping the stories alive, keeping the traditions alive. If you see a tradition in Ajijic, there's a good chance that it had disappeared in the past, and Lalo was the one who revived it. So he's also the director of the Easter Passion Play, Pasión de Cristo, and he's a fantastic person to boot. And next to him we have Jambo Corona. Jambo Corona is the owner of Tepetate Thai restaurants. He also is a great friend of Ajijic. Wherever there's an event, you'll find him with a microphone. He, you know the letras? You know these things here? Called the letras of Ajijic. Right? And these actually, Jambo was trying to organize this, to get this up and running, and he was so frustrated about the progress, as you can imagine. He paid for this. He did this, and he paid for every letter. He also, the two of them also do a radio broadcast on Thursdays, 8 to 8:30, if you're lucky, and they talk about Ajijic's past. So, but it's all in Spanish, I'm afraid. It's on his Facebook page. So, Jambo Corona, you'll find it. Go see his live broadcast there. So, can I bring you to the stage, and can you give a nice warm welcome to Jambo and Lalo? You can take a seat here if you wish. Alright, después de la presentación vamos a hacer preguntas para ustedes. Okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to give a brief talk in English with a few slides. I said brief. We'll see. And then we'll open up to questions for Jambo and Lalo. Any questions you have about Ajijic, especially its past, its history, they'll be more than welcome to answer. And as it's beyond my pay grade, I think I've got Luis here. Luis is at the back. He's going to translate for us. So, here we are in Ajijic. Now, I'm not a historian. I just play one on the stage here. But, so these are... Do I have it in English? That's a good question, isn't it? I think so, yeah. Okay. So I have collected these stories by reading them, or Jambo or Lalo telling me, or other people telling them. So, you may have heard a different version, and that's fine. We can do these two. We'll start off with. I was so organized this morning. We'll start off with, if you were sitting here 12 million years ago. Well, we'll switch. If you slide, let's practice sliding the image. If you slide the image to the right, this was the Ajijic sign before the Spaniards arrived. You see, it's on your phone if you... Yeah, it's difficult to see, but if you got the phone, you got it on the website? You came too late. This was, obviously it wasn't. This was just a practice run. But anyway, the next slide, label number 1, is you lot if you were sat here 12 million years ago. And you'd be under hundreds of feet of water. The lake was way bigger. Some say it reached Aguas Calientes, but Jambo and Lalo assured me, I'm not sure why, they weren't there, but it at least covered Guadalajara and was over in Michoacan. So, I'm missing a page, isn't that interesting? So you can't see a thing, can you? No. Use your phones. And as I'll just give one last shout out. If you've got your phones, open a browser, opencircleideas.wixsite.com /opencircle. And that should be it. Okay. All right. Can I borrow a page in Spanish? Can I borrow the first one? So. Okay. All right. So as the lake receded, it was still bigger than it was here. Oko was still flooded. There were lots of wild animals here, including mammoths. Mammoths used to walk on these very grounds. I was told yesterday that outside, you know where the Nueva Posada is? It's a restaurant at the bottom of Encarnacion Rosas and faces the lake. It's about 200 meters to the east. They found a mammoth skeleton just on the shore. And they dug it up, and I'm not sure what happened to it. I think it went to a museum. And Lalo yesterday told me they found a saber-toothed tiger skull in Rancho del Oro. They haven't been sighted for a while, so you should be okay. And when Jambo was younger, he actually found a tusk, and he was digging it out, and it was taking some time. And one day he came back to it, and the police surrounded it, and the anthropologists, and took it away. Oh. So the people humans started to come to this area about 15,000 years ago. They were nomadic, they were heading down, and they didn't start settlements until about the end of the 11th, beginning of the 12th century. And originally the lake was called Lake Xalisco, and that means a sandy place in the Nahuatl language. So, before the Spaniards arrived, the dominant tribe here were the Coca people. Has anyone been to Viva Mexico in San Juan Cosala? Do you know the owner of Viva Mexico, Agustin? Agustin is a saint. He does so much for that community. Apparently, he can trace his ancestry back to the Coca people. So you go down, have a chat with him. You're talking to the past. So the place names were a little strange because they could be in Nahuatl or Coca or the dialects. I mean, there was no one writing anything down. This was all an oral language. And so places like Chapala means place of small waves in Nahuatl, it's a place with small pots in Nahuatl, or in Coca, a very wet and humid place. So which is it? Maybe both. Next we have the next image. The next image is the mammoth. Yeah, they were down by the shore. Now the next picture, you can't see this, but it is the mural on the side of the Delegación building. Everyone knows where the Delegación building is. It's on the southwest corner of the plaza, where the delegado lives, the mayor, and you see the police out there. On the side, there is a painting done, and it's in 1472. And it was now this is in English. There is it is depicted the Coca tribe, and you can see in the top corner there is now you realize why I have to read this. It's there's two gods. This one here, the male god, is Tlaloc. Tlaloc is the god of rain, and the woman is, God, I've got to pronounce this, haven't I? What's Chalchihuitliquid. All together? Chalchihuitliquid. Now she was the goddess of lakes and streams and she looked after all the water features on the land. Now these were not Ajijic gods, these were Aztec gods. They were revered throughout Mexico. And not mentioned here, but there's a little inscription at the bottom, and that tells you something about what is happening. And really it was a meeting of the villagers for an annual vigil. And during the first days of May, so all the settlements gathered together to celebrate the most important time of the year, to make offerings and to celebrate the three gods, Tlaloc, her, and the other one. So they used to gather together, and they would basically ask for a good harvest. You know, they relied on the gods to smile kindly down on them, and there was a ceremony, and they thanked them for the past agricultural season, and they hoped that they would shine on them a favorable new agricultural season. Okay, now Tlaloc, the god of rain, as I say, it was actually before Aztec. It was Olmec, and he was. I was told an interesting story yesterday, actually, that in Mexico City there's a place called Teotihuacan. Oh, how many practices these have I? It's a little northeast of the city of Mexico, and there was a half-buried statue of Tlaloc, and they were opening a new National History Anthropological Museum in Mexico City. They said, "Oh, wouldn't it be great if, if we dug it up and stuck it outside the museum?" So they dug it up, and they realized it was a little more than halfway buried. In the end, they unearthed it, and it weighed 167 tons. And it took a special platform with 72 wheels and they had to reinforce the roads to get it to Mexico City. It took several days. Now, the moment they unearthed it, it started to rain. And every day, the rain got worse. And on the final day, when they were getting into Mexico City, the heavens opened. There was a hailstorm. It damaged trees, buildings. It flooded the area. So, no, I'm not saying you should believe it, but don't mess with the pre-Hispanic gods. When they erected it, and the sun, the clouds parted, the sun came down again. All was well. Right now, there's a little bit of a crisis in Mexico City. Some of the dams are really low, and they think it's because that statue has been neglected. It's got graffiti and it's dirty. So there's a team of them busily scrubbing away and getting rid of the graffiti, hoping that their dams will refill, will replenish. Okay, now, this is the delegation. You can see this. Go down on Ocampo, I believe. You look across and you can see this. Now, during the night, if you're very lucky, if you go to the next slide, you'll see that this is in the middle of the night. They've all come down to the bottom here. And there's a little motorbike here. They blow their conch horns and they summon San Domino, who is the god of pizza. And they all come down for a slice, and then they go back to take their daily positions. You've got to be lucky to see them, but it's well worth the trip. Okay, now we have, we have Tlaloc and shit. There's also the other goddess, which was really important in the lives of the tribes. It's I think I've got my English back now. Hang on. Yeah, that's it. And on the next slide, you can see it, and this is in the plaza. This is in the northeast corner of the plaza. She's facing El Jardín restaurant. And you can see her from, if you sit at the black and white cafe, you can see her. And there she is, and notice that she has a fishy lower half, and her name is inscribed on the bottom. So, yeah, I'm still lost. Can I have another page? So, yeah, so go and pay homage to Mishishiwawa. Close, yeah. I'm sure they're just, just cringing, just murdering our language. And she actually is the goddess of the underworld. So remember, this is not actual size. She's much bigger than this. And she lives in the netherworld, but this is a good representation, I'm sure. On the next slide, we'll go into the drought. Now, every so often, we get serious droughts here. And the lake being so shallow, the lake recedes very quickly. The average depth of the lake is 7 meters, and at its deepest point, it's only 30 meters. So you can imagine, especially in May, when it's really hot, the water evaporates. You go to the lake the next day and it's disappeared for, dozens of meters. So, it was so, I think in the 50s it was so dry, you could walk to Scorpion Island. You know where that is, one of the islands over to the east. Scorpion Island. And, people used to, go walking on the lake. So, and it was interesting because, remember I told, oh, you've got the one in English. That's what happened. Okay, I've done that one. Have you got another one in English? Sorry about this, it'll all be edited out in the recording. No? Oh well. Yeah, so, a lot of people used to go down to the lake. Remember I said Chapala was the place where place of little pots. Well, the tribes used to like the pots. They used to make little tiny pots, and you can see them on the next slide, I believe. Now this is Lalo collected these. Lalo went walking on the bed, and here he has brought examples. I'm not going to pass them around, but if you want to see them up close, touch them after the presentation. Lalo said he'd be happy to, let you inspect them. So these are the little pots, and usually they were painted in turquoise. Turquoise was a very popular color for the rain gods, and I can put them here, Lalo. So they're of all sizes, and the way they used to make them, they used to take the clay which they mined from the hills, and there's still active clay mines up in the hills, and they mix them with a little gold dust, some blood, and some other bodily fluids. They bake them, form them into these pots, and then they used to cut their earlobes, put a drop of blood in the pots, and then used to toss them in the lake as an offering to the gods. You can also see on there's some arrowheads made of what, flint, obsidian, I don't know. But these were found up in the hills. So there is still artifacts to be found here in Ajijic. So very grateful for Lalo for bringing those along. Thank you. And I say later on you can come down and take a closer look. Now, oh yeah, the place names. So Tlayacapan, San Antonio, Tlayacapan. Do you know anyone from San Antonio, Tlayacapan? You know what Tlayacapan means? The place of Walmart. If you look on the next slide, if you look on the next slide, you can just about see it. This is the ancient pre-Hispanic Walmart. Yes. The lines were just as long. There was so it's changed a little over time, and actually, Tlayacapan means the place of limits or the tip of the earth. So that's Tlayacapan. And there were also some. Can you just bear with me just for a second, because I am just lost was the word. I'll get rid of that one. I'll get rid of this one. Can I borrow the sponge? I'll do it from there. We're there, are we? Okay. So we had the name Ajijic. The name Ajijic is from a Nahuatl word Ajijica, which is translated officially with the place where the water springs forth. You've probably all heard this. Lalo disagrees. Lalo's done his research and he thinks it's a Nahuatl dialect and it means en los ombligos de agua. So the belly button, the navel of water. And there used to be seven springs here, which flowed, probably all except the dry season, but during the rainy season they would flow down. And there was one at the head of Colón, there was one where the church is now, and there was, I think the last two were capped so someone could build some houses on them. So, but that used to be the reason for the name Ajijica. Now, there are plenty of natives still, native tribes, as I mentioned, Augustine, the Coca. There are also Huichol Indians that live around here, and they maintain their Aztec language. And if you go to the Paseo de Arte, do you know where the Paseo de Arte is? It's the part of the plaza that connects the plaza. It's on the north side, passes in front of El Jardín, the new coffee place, and it's where all the vendors sell their jewelry and knickknacks and stuff. That's the Paseo de Arte, and in there you will see, if you go to the next slide, you will see an example. This fella here who is selling his Huichol jewelry, very elaborate beaded jewelry, and that's okay. And you can go and have a chat with him. He doesn't speak English, I'm afraid, but if you know any Aztec, you're in. So it still does surround us. It still is around us. Now, but all good things must come to an end. And in the 16th century, the Spanish arrived. So they came up through Michoacán, which is on the other side of the lake to the east, and the tribes over there were the Purépecha. And the Purépecha, they had their capital called Tzintzuntzan. And the Spanish took it over and used it as a base for exploring further west. And in December, the Purépecha come to Ajijic, and you can see this on the next slide, to sell their wares, to sell their artisanal goods, and also to demonstrate their rituals, which still go on. So this is the Purépecha from Michoacán, every December. Now, you may think, Tzintzuntzan sounds a strange word. We've never seen that before. Well, you probably all passed under the arch coming into LCS. And I don't know whether you've ever noticed, but on the next slide, you can see the Quinta Tzintzuntzan. When Neil James first arrived here, that's what she named this place. And Quinta in this case means country house, and Tzintzuntzan is the Purépecha language for place of the hummingbirds. So, you didn't see it coming in, you'll probably see it going out. Yeah, take a look at it. Now the Spanish finally arrived in Ajijic, and I think in 1520 something, the place was officially founded in 1531, and like all good conquistadors, they sort of appropriated the land and the person in charge, Captain Avalos, he gifted Ajijic to a gentleman called Science, S-A-E-N-Z, Science, and he owned all of Ajijic. And he started to produce the mezcal for tequila. In fact, the whole place, including the hills, was just a blue-green carpet of mezcal plants. And they also had small plots of coffee and corn, but the principal plant here was agave, which you can still see on the streets at some point. So the Spanish arrived, and they actually convinced the Cocas to surrender without a fight. So they were, one of the agreements was they had to be baptized. I don't know whether they knew what that meant, but anyway, they went along with it. So they started cultivating the agave plants, and the Spanish weren't very nice to the indigenous, as you can imagine. They built a distillery. Now, if you're in the lakeshore and you're by the pier, you know Bonanza, I think it's called Bonanza now, the restaurant used to be called Isabella Maria. Before that, it was the Vieja Posada. And that was the original hacienda of the Sainz family. So, and they added on slowly. Like I said, they built a distillery, and you can see actually on the next slide. I went in to talk to the owner of Vieja Posada, and because I read that the milling, the machinery, the equipment is still upstairs. And I said, is it still upstairs? And she says, look, it's the roof. So there wasn't an upstairs. She knew nothing about it. So I went wandering round, and the hacienda extended all the way from the corner along the lake shore and up. It didn't Colon at that point. Morelos, yeah. And there's a gift shop called, I think it's called Chirao. And I went in there and I spoke to the owner. On the next slide, you can see the interior. Now this is original. There was never a roof on most of the buildings, and they just haven't covered it, mainly because there's a tree growing in the middle of the shop. But this was the original hacienda for the Sainz family. You can wander in there and relive history. Now what used to happen in this place, someone would blow a conch horn at 4 a.m. and all the Indians would bring down their corn to be milled, to be ground down. And that stayed in business until 1940. Now the next image is our beautiful church, San Andres. Now that was built in it was constructed in 1535, but not exactly on this site, because it was destroyed by a hurricane in 1749. So, and then they started to build this new, a new church, which has been added on over the years. And you can see there's various varieties of brickwork. And so you can sort of trace the progress of the building of the San Andres. Now, the Franciscan monks gave us the patron saint of St. Andrew, or San Andres. Originally it was San Francisco, but Chapala stole it, so we had to go in for a substitute. We got San Andres. And anyone been to the San Andres festivals in November? Most people leave the village. It's 9 days of noisy chaos and mayhem. But he's much loved. Now we go on to, as I say, we'll talk about the island from Mescala. You can see Mescala from here, and you can visit it too. The island of Mescala was, there's still a fort there. You can still wander around the fort. At the Farmacias Guadalajara on the carretera, the road that runs by the side of it is Encarnacion Rosas. And Encarnacion Rosas was a lakeside fisherman. He actually wasn't from Ajijic. It was between Chapala and Mescala, who was born there. But he worked here, and they were just fed up with the way that the Spaniards were treating the indigenous. So they, it was during the Mexican Revolution, they decided to form a ragtag band of insurgents, and they attacked the Spanish. They had lances, sticks, stones. No one expected them to be victorious, but they were. And in the following years, there were lots of battles between the Spaniards and the insurgents, the locals. They eventually fled to Mescala, and they held out there for years. I mean, they were low on food. They did have some armaments, but they were low on ammunition. But the Spanish couldn't budge them, and they used to sneak out at night and go and get food from elsewhere on the lake to bring back. Now, while Encarnacion Rosas was the instigator of this, the man that was really responsible for the success was Marcos Castellanos. Now, Marcos Castellanos is the street that runs up from here up to the carretera, by the side of the temple. And he was originally a priest from Ocotlan, to our east, the next municipality to our east. And he was a bit of a smart cookie, and he built trenches around there, and he taught the insurgents how to use arms and defend themselves. You can still visit it. If you go there, as you went to the town of Mescala, you'll get lots of people running after your car, saying you can park here and we'll take you to the island. So you get out of your car, they'll take you down to a boat, you can go over to the island and wander around, they'll tell you stories of the past, and some of them might even be true. But despite numerous attempts to exterminate the rebels, they hung on, and they were still launching attacks against the Spanish. And they were low on food, but they were high on defiance and bravery. Now eventually, and this is very unusual, a surrender was negotiated between the Spaniards and the insurgents. And there was an agreement that none of the defenders would be punished. They were allowed to go back, but they were given their homes back, and they returned weak, hungry, but alive. In the next slide, you can see the Marcos Castellanos. This is the leader of the insurgency, and this can be found on the Paseo de Arte, just around the corner from El Jardín. And he's a revered character. He actually, after the insurgence was over, he remained in Ajijic till he died. He also, there's also, if you go to the next, if you're walking up Colón, you can see on the side of the delegation, this plaque here, which is the route that the insurgents took when they came back from the island. So if you walk up that road, you're taking the same route that the insurgents take after their negotiated and very honourable surrender. And there's a thank you on there to Marcos Castellanos. And this was, these plaques here are put up by the Cronistas Jalisco, Michoacán, of which Lalo is Ajijic's representative. Now, during the Porfirian era, which is between 1875 and 1910, Ajijic was isolated from Chapala by land. Their commerce with the resort town of Chapala, which was 5 miles away, was confined to the occasional cargo canoe touching down at the Sands Hacienda to pick up a load of tequila or coffee beans. And there was it was a time of great upheaval. There was the border wars, the Cristeros wars, and that tore families apart. The Cristeros wars was really a battle between the government and the church. Ajijic was very involved in that, and they used to hide the religious figures. There is a tunnel from the church to the, you know where Tepalo is? Tepalo is up in the foothills. It's beyond Minwar if you go Javier Mina. It's on the way to the 3 waterfalls of Ajijic, yes. For those snowbirds, we have waterfalls during the rainy season. But the tunnel goes from underneath the baptism area, the font, up to Palo. It's sealed in the church, and it's hidden in Palo. And you can only spend a few minutes in there because of the ammonia. Hundreds of bats have settled in there, and the accumulated guano is enough to cut short your adventure. So the Mexican Revolution had quite an impact on Ajijic. The Sen's hacienda was broken up, split into many small holdings, which you see today. Mezcal cultivation, agave cultivation ceased because it takes 7 years for the plant to mature, and you needed land and time and money. And everyone went back to growing in small plots. And in the early 1920s, Senor Ramirez, who was the mayor of Chapala, bought the land, bought the building, and he still owns it today, and he rents it out. Now in the 1920s, Ajijic was discovered by Europeans and North Americans. And one you may have heard of is La Rusa. On the next page here we can see a picture of, next slide, La Rusa. And if you go to the Nueva Posada, the dining room is called La Rusa. She was a New York Broadway dancer, ballet dancer, and she came and she adopted this sort of crazy persona. She used to gallop through the streets at full pelt on a horse through Ajijic. She was quite a character, and she performed at Teatro Degollado in Guadalajara. And if you eat in the Nueva Posada, she was surrounded by pictures of her and her legacy. She also, you know about the gold rush, right, in Ajijic? It was short-lived in the 40s, I believe. Some engineers were over near Rancho del Oro, and they wondered why the vegetation was a little different. They dug a little bit, found some gold, and the gold rush was on. Now, unfortunately, it happened overnight, and corn mills were transformed into gold ore mills. The women of the village had to revert to hand making pulverize the corn for the family tortillas. Farmers left their fields, fishermen put down their nets. Everyone was going to get rich, right? But trouble beset Ajijic. Neighbors quarreled. There were lots of murders and mayhem. Few brothels sprang up. And Ajijic began to resemble the Wild West. Now, La Rusa got into this, and she got the biggest mine, and her mine still exists. But there's a Mexican family who is squatting in there, so I'll just say it's somewhere over there. A house apparently is still, if you know the soccer field in Tecoluta, a house faces the soccer field. So there is still evidence today of Ajijic's past. But she got in on the act, but she was cheated and robbed of all her money. She got into various business ventures. They all failed. She died penniless in Ajijic. But it was 1940, and the village returned to peace once again, and we were going to start connecting Ajijic to the outside world. Now this is the next picture, the picture of a typical main road going through Ajijic. So I think this might be where the Carretera was and Marcos Castellanos. But the Carretera was not the main road between here and Chapala. That was Constitucion and Camino Real, where the horses are. That was the main road. The water situation, in the plaza, there was 3 wells. I see wells, you can see the tubes there. They were pumps that pumped the water. Everyone came to collect their water from the wells. All bathing was done in the lake. This was only changed in the, I believe, in the, I'm not sure, in the 50s. This was changed to the water system we have now. And now animals roam free in the street. In an effort to keep the streets clean of animal waste, the mayor levied a 1 peso fine on any livestock owner allowing his pig to use the street for a bathroom. Should we bring it back to the dogs?
Yeah.
In 1943, Neil James arrived here. Now she'd been, she'd been explored. She's a bit of an explorer, a bit of a character. She was exploring an active volcano near Pátzcuaro in Michoacán. And she got badly burnt, so she was looking for a place to recuperate. She came here and she found this place. So she soon bought a small house, and this here was her house. And the rest of it was basically jungle. So, but she was, and she remained here. She stopped her traveling. She liked it so much, obviously. She remained here until she died in 1994. Now, she added various structures. She was a great friend to the community. She, the offices, the buildings, the offices and the library, they were once operated as a silkworm factory. There were looms in there, and it was a sales room until a freak cold snap killed the worms, the silkworms, and she would have to import new ones from Japan. She never did. There are still the original mulberry trees around. There's one behind the Kengosh Pavilion. I couldn't tell you what a mulberry tree looks like, but apparently there's still 3 or 4 of the original trees still here. Now, if we go to this is Neil James here, when she arrived. And those are the buildings, you all know them, the library, the offices, all now being repurposed for take care of us. And round the corner here, I hope you've all seen it, is the mural that Neil James and her work that she did for the community. Now, she started an art program for kids, which still goes on today. Every Saturday morning, there's art classes for the kids of Ajijic, free. That happens in the back. And she was, and at the top, above the mural, you see here, there's the faces of the famous artists. And some of these artists from Ajijic, some of these little kids that were just painted, received national acclaim. So it's a very, very special program. I say it still goes on today. Now, she wrote an article for the magazine Modern Mexico in 1946 called I Live in Ajijic. With your permission, I'd like to read it out. So this is Neil James' impression of Ajijic in 1946. Villagers lead modest, dignified lives governed to a degree by the spirit of mañana. We have hospices where a stranger may find lodging. We have a posada, casa de asistencia, and even a hotel, but none of the innkeepers trouble themselves to display a sign indicating the nature of their establishment. No need for grocery stores to display names either. Everybody knows where they are. And the post office too. Only the foreigners come daily for their mail. And sometimes when the courier forgets and permits the Ajijic mail pouch to remain on the bus and continue on to Ocotepec, foreigners howl as if the oversight were a personal affront. Our streets have names, but no one knows what they are. Our letters arrive marked simply, the house is known. Village children are plump and well nourished, and we have only an occasional beggar, usually a man from elsewhere. Jalisco is one of the Republic's richest agricultural states, and the Lake Chapala region is especially favored. Mango, papaya, bananas, corns, beans, chili, tomatoes form the main crops, but vegetables and fruits of every climate will grow in the local gardens. At certain harvest seasons, sections of the village sidewalk used to be covered with drying peanuts or bean pods or ripe maize for them to dry, usually watched over by a nurse girl holding a baby or a woman engaged in needlework guarding depredations of pigs, burros or cattle. Our animals lead a free life, and when venturing abroad on a dark night, there is always the danger of stumbling headlong over a black cow or a pig sleeping in the street or crashing into the rear of a burro. Foreigners carry flashlights. Mexicans look where they're going. Wait now. So in 1965 it was, when the streets were torn up and they laid down a new water system, ending trips to the town square for water. In '89 they laid down a sewage system, and last week Cologne got new water pipes. The tradition continues. Now, did you know that Ajijic has its own anthem? It's called Mi Lindo Ajijic, and if this works, This was played actually here by a group called Bella Linton, a female mariachi group. So that is, so this anthem, if you go to the next, you can see the first verse actually says, in the whole of Mexico, there is no place as pretty as my Ajijic. That's why I sing with all my soul of the beautiful place where I was born. Now, it was written by Crescencio Ramos Heredia. And these lyrics are, have you seen them? They're on the side of the wall on Marcos Castellanos. Just above the church on the east side, opposite the t-shirt shop and the gift shop. So this was painted by, I believe, Bruno Mariscal, which is one of the artists that was trained by Neil James. He met a rather sad end, Crescencio. He used to keep horses out to the west. And one day he came to check on his horses, and they were tied up to a tree, and they were being attacked by killer bees. And so he ran over and he untied the horse so it could get away, but the bees attacked him, and he died from their stings. So, and incidentally, Crescencio was Lalo's uncle. So, now we're going to finish off here with no story about Ajijic will be complete without mentioning the sayacas. Did anyone go to the parade, to the Mardi Gras Carnival parade? Yeah, did you all get covered in flour? Yeah, isn't it great? Now, if you go to the next slide, you can see the sayacas. And they have an interesting history. There's a few versions, probably the most reliable, at least the most popular. It says that before the Spaniards arrived, there was a shaman that lived in Tomatlan. Tomatlan, there was 3 settlements here. There was Tomatlan, where Canacinte is, over beyond the cemetery. Then there was Tecoluta, which is 6 corners, and Ajijic. So those were the 3 settlements. So they were born, there was a shaman there, and his wife gave birth to twins. Now these twins had a defect. They were a little, how do I politically say this correctly? They were a little challenged, but they used to drool a lot. And they couldn't stop their mouths drooling. So they were given the name Shayacatl. Shayacatl? Yeah. Which means the face that produces water. And from that we get the word Sayaca. Now sometimes they were really loved. They were so happy. They went in front of all the parades, all the rituals. They were just adored. And they were just happy all the time. Later they had a sister, Sicansi. She was born, which means in Nahuatl, the Virgin who observes nature. She was really smart and sweet. Everybody loved the family, but unfortunately their mother died in giving birth to Sicansi, and the Sayacas were raised by nannies over in Tomatlan. Now, even when the Spaniards arrived, they were considered. The Sayacas were considered so important that they received them. There was a ceremonial stone, a white porcelain stone, so they received the Spaniards at this ceremonial stone, and they sprinkled marigold petals on their heads as a blessing. Now, the female twin was a little precocious, and she used to like to chase the boys and try to kiss them, and they ran away. And so what she used to do, she used to throw ground corn at them. And hence the tradition of the Sayacas throwing confetti or flour. So flour has replaced the ground corn. The male Sayaca, he was a little more quiet, and he used to like to fill hollowed out turkey eggs with dried marigold petals and ground toasted corn. And then he would throw them at people as a celebration, as a fun. And I don't know whether you've ever seen them, you can still buy them today in the Ajijic Plaza. They're full of confetti now, you buy them, and the kids love to smash them on your head. They died shortly after the Spaniards arrived, but their sister, Sicansi, they're going to kill me after this, was well liked for her ability to cure illness, and she lived to a ripe old age in which she was too ill to go collect all the herbs in the hills here, that people brought them to her and she still made medicines. So now you know the legend of the sayacas, and the flower won't be as annoying now because you're part of the tradition. So next time you're near one of these places, whether it's in the plaza or down by the lake, or just close your eyes and try and imagine, try and invoke some of the images from the past. And if you listen carefully, you can hear the echoes of their voices. And Ajijic is still alive with their spirit. Thank you very much. Now we have an opportunity to ask Jambo and Lalo questions. They both speak perfect English. Hablan inglés perfectamente. Luis, where's Luis? Here. Oh, Luis is going to translate, because it's beyond my pay grade. Union rules. So if you have a question, raise your hand. Ask it by all means in English or Spanish, and Luis will translate into English. And you can ask Jambo or Lalo. So, would you like to...
Sure, we can start it,
yeah?
Hi, I just finished reading...
You want to wait for the microphone?
Oh,
Hi, I just finished reading a book called Lake Chapala Through the Ages, an anthology of travelers' tales by Tony Burton. And within the book it said that there was a huge whirlpool that came down into the lake, and pleasure boats were out on the lake, and the pleasure boats sunk, and they were never found again. To me that sounds like a myth. Is that true? Or?
Is that true? Is that... No, that's good.
What else? What's it?
And the boat sank.
¿Es un mito o verdad?
Yo creo que es un mito que no está en la tradición.
So what they're saying that some of those are myths, a story that have been told, but they are not really consignated on the history of, or the official registry history books of the town. So I think that one, they believe it's more like a myth. And he collects some.
Yes, Tlaloc would never have permitted that.
San Andreas is obviously such a big part of Ajijic life. But what's the significance of the other church, the one on the north side of the plaza? Because I rarely see anything about that.
Que si pudieran platicar un poquito, que está San Andrés, pero está el otro templo, ¿cuál es su? La Rosario. ¿Cuál es su? Exactamente. ¿Cuál es su?
Do we all know what Peter's mentioned? The little chapel on the plaza. Yes. Okay.
Hay es complejo, porque se supone que primero fue dedicada a un santo italiano. Se supone que primeramente la capilla es de 1749, es una remodelación.
So there's a very peculiar history surrounding that temple because it was first dedicated to an Italian saint, which was
San Roque.
San Roque.
franciscano y
He was a Franciscan.
sin ser sacerdote.
See, without being, he was just a monk. He was not a priest. So he was from the Franciscan order, and that was done in. ¿Cuándo fue dedicado?
¿Cómo?
¿Cuándo fue hecho el templo dedicado?
Es una remodelación de 1749.
So it's a remodelation that took place around 1748.
La actual que vemos
The-
es del siglo XVIII.
The one that we have now is from the 18th century, and it's dedicated to. ¿A quién fue dedicado actualmente?
Se supone hay controversia entre la
There's a controversy in which to whom it was devoted.
a San Roque
First it was to San Roque, and then
en el tiempo de las pandemias, que la más fuerte fue en 1577, donde casi desaparece el pueblo.
okay, so that there was controversy because it seems they changed who it was devoted to through the big pandemic fate that the town faces in 15, 25, 20, those kinds of years. There was a very high pandemic process that almost wiped out all the towns next to Lakeside.
Dice que eran fuertes, calenturas muy fuertes, dolores de todo el cuerpo de cabeza y hemorragias por oídos y nariz y boca.
So the symptoms that the pandemic brought was very high fevers with muscle spasms and pain in stomach and also bleeding through the nose and ears. So that practically wiped the area.
Ustedes que estudian más que nosotros, que leen más que nosotros, saben que fue debido a que nosotros no teníamos defensas contra las enfermedades que nos trajeron los españoles.
And that was one of the reactions that happened in Mexico through the process of colonization from the Spaniards. Many of the sickness that came out from Europe, we didn't have. We have defenses. We were not immune. We didn't have immunity or way to respond. So that killed a lot of towns and wiped large pieces of the population of Mexico.
I've heard that they're remodeling the Jambo, but they found some serious structural problems, which brought it to a bit of a halt. So they decided what to do on that.
Yes, sir. So.
¿Inglés o español?
Español mejor, ya.
Ok. Cambió mucho la laguna cuando usted está niños. Hay mucho más pescado, diferente tipo de, o todos solo los chorales y un poquito de tilapia. O porque ahora está un poquito feo.
Es interesante.
So he's asking if the lake has changed a lot in the kind of the fishes and the quality of water and the way that it's used since they were kids and up to now.
Antes había más diferentes tipos de pescados, charales, bagres, carpas, y si era muy diferente, llegaba hasta la calle principal, la calle Ocampo, hasta allá llegaba el agua en aquellos tiempos que yo recuerdo, y si era el agua, si era transparente, si era muy clara el agua, muy bonita, de hecho podías bañarte, hasta incluso tomar agua, se podía, pero ahora pues no se puede.
So the level of the lake went all the way to Ocampo. Of course, there were a lot more variety of fishes that now they have been almost taken care of. And the quality of the water was pure. You can even drink it. You can use it for many uses. So that has changed a lot in the past.
Do you remember Todd Stone? He used to give the annual, and he always used to drink. He's no longer with us. Just, had nothing to do with it. But if you go to Chapala, you can see, you can buy trays of chorales, the little tiny fish that are fried, and they still come from the lake. Just a word of advice.
Se podía, nosotros nos bañamos de niños, yo tengo 71 años, de niños nos bañamos y podíamos abrir los ojos sin problema y podíamos ver las piedras, arenas, la lama.
So he's saying he's 71 years old, and when he was a kid, they bath at the lake. They used to swim and bath, and you can open your eyes in it and see very transparent the bottom of the lake. So the quality of water has really changed.
Ya en 1975 murió el primer joven, que sería de mi edad, porque ya venía el agua contaminada. desde el río, y él murió de una infección que penetró por sus ojos. Y entonces ya,
So since 1975, the first registered case of a young man that died out of an infection that was provoked because of the quality of water that was coming contaminated through the rivers. So it's a kind of infection that attacks through the eyes and creates a disease. So that's why it's not safe anymore.
I think I mentioned a lake, actually, in the past. Every town claimed it for themselves. So it was Lake Chapala if you lived in Chapala, it was Lake Ajijic if you lived in Ajijic, Lake Cosala if you lived in Saman Cosala. It was a while before it settled on one name.
Yes.
This may be maybe half a lecture, but on the escuela right downtown, around the corner from all the masks of the dead, there's a huge mural, and I wonder if you could comment on that. There's obviously a lot in it, some gods, fish, covers the whole front of the school. I don't know.
This is the road Parroquia that leads from the church that passes by the square on the south side of the church. And there is a school there. And of course, what junior school wouldn't be complete without a wonderful painting of naked people on the side. So, ¿sabes algo de la?
No, que está en la escuela, que está enfrente del templo, a la
El mural.
vuelta del muro de los...
¿qué pregunta?
Del mural, pues también podemos mencionar.
Del mural.
El mural, cuando yo, la primera parte que está hacia el lado del templo simboliza, cada mujer cada desnudo simboliza, según Efraín González, las 5 cascadas del Tepal.
Okay, so what he's saying, it was painted by a friend Gonzalez, and the right part of the mural, that's where the 5 naked bodies are, they try to symbolize the 5 waterfalls that were born from the Tepalo.
La parte que pintó después,
The second part that was like a second part that was drawn in,
que son como 5 desnudos masculinos,
that are the 5 male naked bodies,
simboliza la manera de buscar el alimento.
that symbolizes the way that we organize to try to collect food and provide food for the town.
En nuestro espacio.
Uh-huh.
Por eso pueden ver un cazador,
That's why you can see a hunter,
creadores de cerámica,
ceramic artisans,
pescadores
fishermen,
y recolectores de frutas.
and crops collectors. So what they're trying to represent is those 5 social economical dynamics that were around town.
Y curiosamente yo le decía, hay cazadores, curiosamente yo le decía, Fred, ¿por qué pusiste mangos ahí? Pues porque era el fruto de aquí. Le dije, estás mintiendo, aquí no había mangos.
So one of the controversies that he has challenged a friend on that, because there are mangoes reflected on one of the images. A friend says that there were mangoes here. He says no, there were no mangoes over this. This is not a mango area. We had all kinds of fruits. So
If we get to someone who wasn't asked a question, I'm sorry. We're just running out of time, I'm afraid.
we get some on the back and 2 more. Yeah.
If you can be very brief with the questions, it'll help with the translations.
How many times do you know of that the lake has dried up? Well, or partly dry?
Never completely.
So there are like really 4 times that have been really bad. We're talking about probably moving in up to 3 miles up down. It hasn't always been completely dry. And the worst condition was in 1950. That was the worst time.
That is when you could walk to Scorpion Island. You could walk across the lake from here to the other side at the time.
Hi, I have a question about manatees. I have heard that they released manatees in the lake, and if they didn't, why are there manatees on the bandstand in the plaza and by Tango? It seems odd.
Que si saben algo de los manatís, que si alguna vez es cierto que liberaron manatís en el lago, o por qué hay manatís en algunos de los banners y esas cosas.
Sí, el lago, ya no lo hemos vuelto así, pero se cubría total, todo lo que es el lago, se cubría de lirio.
So one of the things that we had is that the lake used to be totally covered on some seasons with lirio. That it's the green plant, that it's kind of a lake.
Water hyacinth.
It's a white, yes. So
Sí había manatíes, pero el gobierno, como era un problema grandísimo, el gobierno con sus secretarías trajeron manatís, no sé de dónde, pero el gobierno jamás avisó a los pescadores de la ribera, de toda la ribera, y ellos pensando que eran monstruos los mataron.
So what happened is that the manatees were brought in by the federal government as a strategy to fight lirio, but as always they just forgot to tell the local people that they were releasing manatees at the lake. So fishermen thought they were monsters, or they were creatures that were putting in danger the lake and their way of living, so they killed the manatees.
Now, I always thought this was a myth until I found a clipping from a Chapala newspaper, and it's true. They brought them in from the sort of Gulf side, the Yucatan area, Quintana Roo, brought 3 of them in all the way to Ajijic to solve the lirio problem. ¿Cuándo?
¿Se acuerdan más o menos las fechas?
En los 60, 70.
60s, 70s, around that. Yep.
Time for maybe one more question. One more. Have to get these sound guys out of here.
I'll try to be quick. I understood that La Rusa's house was on Independencia 26. Is that right?
Yeah, there's a little plaque on there with a woman riding a horse, right? Okay. Yeah. I know when she died, she was a great friend of Mike Eager, who owns the Nueva Posada. And she gifted just about all the portraits, all the memorabilia to him. And that you can see them now there. I don't know much about the house. La Casa de la Rusa, 26 de Independencia.
Independencia, no recuerdo el número. Ahí llegaba su correo, tenía un buzón.
What he's saying is that he remembers that on that address there was a mailbox and her mail was delivered there. Yes, it seems like it's true, yeah. What he's saying is the house itself, it was not a big construction. But it was all the block that it was all for the gardens and the rest of the property. So the house was actually small, but the property was very large. It went all the way to the lake.
Okay.
There were many legends about her. He met her in her last days, but she was always riding a horse. She always used to dress in black with a big hat with flowers. And very white curly hair. How the sayaka should dress.
Y entonces se decía, había muchos árboles frutales.
There were many fruit trees around the property.
Y una de las leyendas decía que su madre murió y ella la tenía momificada en su casa.
So one of the legends there was around is that after her mother passing, she kind of mummified and kept her in the property with her.
Y se dice que su hermano Olga,
and it said that his brother,
era su compañero de ballet,
it was his ballet companion, partner,
él murió muy joven.
and he died very, very young.
Lo que sí yo llegué a ver al entrar, porque yo repartía cartas.
One of the things that he once saw, because he was a mail boy,
Tenía una escultura del bronce muy bonita,
He had a bronze sculpture at the entrance
de una tipo romano, una cazadora.
of a
Diana la cazadora.
kind of a Diana the Hunter, the Roman sculpture.
Se la
Yeah, that was stolen.
It's been an honor and a privilege to have Jambo and Lalo with us today. I'm sorry I rambled on for a little. I lost track